One of the biggest things I see go wrong in like early stage startups is when two founders have the same skill set.
What's the worst that can happen? We're friends.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out. I think there's that stage at the beginning where you have to be super transparent with one another, even if it's like a tough conversation to have.
At the end of the day, what are you in the business to make money, or are you in the business to be famous? We never started the pod to get here. Yeah. Like that wasn't even the path that it was
you would have
supposed to
quit
go.
if you did.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
it. Yeah. We spent to do the podcast $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So $200,000 with no thought that this would ever make us money back. Like if that's going to push the business forward, let's do that.
So what's your guys' goal for the podcast in the next 2 years? Welcome guys to the podcast. Appreciate you guys, making it out here. I know you're in Miami as well, so
yep.
I'm sure we'll see each other around.
Appreciate the invite.
Yes.
Appreciate the invite, man.
Yes,
you got a sick setup here.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. So obviously I want to start off just in the beginning. And obviously if you guys don't know, Money Buys Happiness, you guys have a pretty big podcast and you guys just are building so much momentum now. How did you guys just wake up one day and say, hey, let's start a podcast?
Go on.
It's a funny story. So we actually own a creative agency based out of Toronto. We're from Toronto, Canada. So we own an agency out there. Started in 2019 and we took off. It was doing amazing. It was going really well. And the pandemic hit. We had a lot of our clients in hospitality at the time. So pandemic hits, shut everything down. Obviously Toronto was very different than Miami. Miami was only a short period of time. Toronto was closed down for a year and a half. So that shuts down. Pretty much the first budget that was cut for all these clients was marketing, because they're like, well, we're closed. Yep. So why are we going to pay this agency to do our social media content, whatever? So there was a couple weird weeks, maybe week and a half, 2 weeks of just us just sitting in our office, our empty office with just our money just depleting. And I just look at him, and at that time we were actually watching a lot of Gary Vee. I got to be honest. He was
Shout out Gary Vee.
Yeah, for real.
Gary Vee, man.
He was a big inspiration for us. And the guy was just crushing content every day, 500 posts a fucking day on every platform. And I'm like, okay, why is he doing this? What's going on? Whatever. And essentially we kind of came to the realization of okay, everyone right now is at home and on their phones 100 times more than they would be pre-pandemic. They're doing nothing. They're just looking at social media. So I'm like, dude, we got to find a way to just be there. We got to have as much content pumping as possible. And that was just the natural progression of that. I was like, hey, dude, if we just do a podcast, we can just crush podcasts. Originally, we're like, hey, we're gonna just crush a podcast every day.
Wow.
And that was kind of where it was born. We just thought essentially we would do a marketing business podcast, hence the name Money Buys Happiness. And that's kind of what it started as. So
yeah, but I'm gonna give you credit, because you came to me and you're like, yo, we should start a podcast. And the way me and Ant are we talk a lot. We just talk. We're Italian guys, so we always talk, right? So we have our studio in Toronto where we would have a lot of guests come by, not on the podcast, just clients, friends, people that wanted advice on their business. And we just found ourselves talking to them for hours and hours. And at the end of it, we're like, fuck, that could have been a podcast.
Wow.
True.
I think Ant saw that opportunity, to be honest. And he came to me and he was like, hey, let's just start a podcast. And we're those type of guys that will just do it. We don't think too much about it. We're not going to overthink or try to perfect it. We're just going to try it. And that's pretty much how it started.
Nice. So how do you guys know each other?
So we were both in nightlife before. So we were in
Toronto.
In Toronto. So we were both club promoters there. Before the agency, and actually during the agency a little bit before pandemic. And through that, we met each other. We were both doing very similar things, throwing special events, thousands of people. And he kind of came to me and he said, hey, let's just do it together, because we'll just bring double the people. Yeah. Right. So we're like, all right, cool. That's easy math. Easy math, right?
Easy done.
And then we started working together from there. And through that, we just started to learn more about each other, what our strengths are and stuff like that. And he came to me again. And he's like,
pretty much our relationship is like this. I see this guy. He is in Toronto. He is the guy. Everyone knows him. Nightlife, this guy. Everyone fucking knows Ernesto. I'm in nightlife too, but I know a fraction of the people that he knows. And so we're working together and whatever, and it's going really well. And I'm noticing, I'm like, dude, this guy, people are coming to him for everything. Hey, do you know a guy who can do websites? Do you know a guy, a good videographer? I have this brand and we're shooting videos. I need someone, a graphic designer? I need this. I need a fucking billboard. I need whatever. And we're in the office and we're working on like our events and stuff. And he's like, I see him doing all this, and he'd be like, yeah, talk to this guy, talk to that guy. And it's just like, it's every day 4 or 5 people. And so this is where I'm like, okay, dude, are you getting like a referral fee for like sending these people like business? Like, am I missing something? And he goes, no, like whatever. Like I connect them, and then hopefully they'll come to the club with me. They'll come to a special event, and that's how I'll like make money off of the connection.
Would pretty much do anything for someone
to show
thinking
up.
that they would come out to the club. Like it was insane, right?
So he's saying that. I'm like, okay, dude, no. Like we're stopping that right here. I'm like, we need to start an agency. I'm like, 2019, it feels late now, but like when you think about it, back then, people, even in terms of social media, weren't like crushing it the way they are today.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, we gotta start an agency. And then that's kind of like where we took the next step of our like business partnership and said, okay, let's start this agency called Neighborhood. And then that's where that was kind of born. So we were always around the same things, whatever. And like he mentioned, in a partnership, you see the strengths in each other. And I think with ours, I'm kind of the guy that like, I'm a little bit of the visionary. Like I can see the next step, but this guy is the guy who actually creates the processes and like brings it to life. Cause that is not my strength at all, but he knows how to do that really well. And I'm always trying to see like, what's the next move for us, right? Or for the business.
Yeah.
So that's how we connect nightlife. And then that's sort of a very short summary, a lot of crazy moments in between, but a very short summary of how we connected and brought it to life.
And that's so good that you guys have different skill sets, because one of the biggest things I see go wrong in like early stage startups is when 2 founders have the same skill set.
Yep. Yes.
And then like you can't.
There's just no point. You got too many chefs in the kitchen, as they would say, right? And I think we established that very early on. And we were friends as well, right? But we were not like best friends at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We were more like, okay, we're friends, but we also do business, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. I think a lot of people just get into business with their bestie and they're like, oh, let's do this together. Like, what's the worst that can happen? We're friends. Yeah. Right. And I think we both have experience where that just doesn't work out, especially when you're not transparent with each other.
But there's also an ego thing involved. I think that's the thing people gotta like, detach from, because like you said, a lot of early startups, 2 founders and they have the same skill set. And then what's the point? It's a waste of time and a waste of talent. But I think what happens is a lot of people also like let their ego get in the way, right? So like, for example, for us, like even with the agency, like I mentioned, he was just much more known in Toronto than I was. So, I could have had an ego and tried to be like, no, I'm the guy. Like we're both the guys. But I even think I said to him, like at one point I was like, hey, listen, like if there's got to be a face to the business, I'm like, dude, I don't give a fuck. It can be you. Like if that's going to push the business forward, let's do that. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? That doesn't bother me. I don't have an ego. I don't need to be the guy. I almost sometimes prefer to be in the back end. Like, it's just the way that...
To be honest, when you said that, I'm like, this is my guy. Like, you know what
Exactly.
Like, I'm like, okay, this guy I can rock with, because I've had experiences in the past where, strengths again, where I don't have many like technical strengths. A strength of mine was my network at the time. Mm. And some of my previous partners would not like that so much, because then they thought, hey, well, I'm not in the limelight. People don't know this is me too, right? Which is a tough pill to swallow. And again, now we're fine because everyone knows him as well, right? So I think there's that stage at the beginning where you have to be super transparent with one another, even if it's like a tough conversation to have. And I think he knew that, me coming from those other businesses, I felt that before, and he pretty much said that, and I was like, let's go.
But that's why it's worked out for you guys, right?
Yeah,
it's the self-awareness too, to just know, because if you want 2 people in the limelight, like there's not 2 CEOs, right?
Well, you have to, right? And I think that's the thing. Like at the end of the day, what are you in the business to make money, or are you in the business to be famous? Which that's also another business on its own. But for us, we're like, I'm just like, dude, I just need I need the house on the water, bro. Like, you know what I mean? I don't care, dude.
Well, we had goals and we had a vision, and we knew like what lanes we each had to stay in to get there, right? Because then if I start going in his lane, then maybe we're getting less attention on the brand, or we're getting whatever, less people coming up to us or contacting us. So everyone knew what they had to do, and I think that that was huge for us.
That's the self-awareness part.
Yeah, that's so smart. So marketing agency, like, what gave you guys the thought to say, hey, I need to start a marketing agency? Obviously, that's very popular, right? It's one of the biggest things. I think I tried to start when I bought like a Tai Lopez course back in 2016, 2017. I didn't do anything with it. But,
yeah.
So.
I think, you know what? I think there was a lot of experience on our end when it came to growing our personal brands because we had to, right? We were in nightlife, and that's one industry where you just need people to know you. So you get very creative as to how you run your personal brand, right? And we saw how certain things on social media would work and help us grow. And you know what? At that point, we said, I think we can help people grow their socials, whether it's personal brand or a business, using our techniques that we did, let's say, in nightlife. And I think that's when we came up with our first service, which was social media management, right? Because we didn't start an agency and then had all these services right off the bat, right? Yeah. We started with a few services, content creation, social media.
Well, there was like, to his point, like our agency, and still till this day is like, we're a creative agency and we can pretty much do everything now. Like we have a department to handle almost anything. But our first and still the pillar foundation of our agency is social management and content creation, and those two types of things together. So like what we were doing when we were promoters and nightlife, like we were doing these like side deals that no other promoters were thinking about, where like, let's say like a restaurant would like pay us a fee every month to like show up before the club, have drinks.
Which is popular now. This is popular now to do as a promoter.
It is, but at the time, no one was doing that. And so we'd get paid to like go there. We'd bring like 15, 20 people, do like a nice dinner there, and then we'd give them content. So we'd get everyone tagging the stories. Everyone that showed up, you had to like take stories of the food, whatever, tag them, then, take pictures, whatever. And we're giving them this content, and then we're noticing like, hey, this is actually helping. Like these restaurants are gaining more recognition and people are actually starting to book with them, right? We had one restaurant, one of our first clients ever, that was like pretty much a dying restaurant. Like they were losing money like crazy. We came in, started managing their socials, and it's been
within 6 months they were one of the best restaurants.
And
downtown Toronto.
now they went from 2019 almost shutting down to one restaurant to today the owner has 5 restaurants. Yeah. All just from like organic social growth, right? So you
have to be very, and this is something I want to bring up. You have to be very confident in yourself when you're starting a business, right? Because at that point we were promoters, right? So now we're trying to change the game and say, no, but we're also agency owners. And that's hard. That's hard to adapt to. It's hard to change people's minds once you're in an industry like nightlife, right? So we were very confident in ourselves going to these businesses saying, hey, you need us. It's not just like this is going to help your business. And there was a lot of conversations where, and again, we don't have a marketing background. We didn't go to school for marketing. Yeah. So there was a lot of conversations that we had to convince businesses to use social media. Could you believe that?
2019, there was restaurants and other really big businesses that were like, do I really need an Instagram? We're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you
they
crazy?
Get comfortable, right? They're saying, oh, well, I'm doing pretty good. Like, I'm good. People get comfortable, right? So at that point, you kind of have to use one restaurant as a case study, and you know how it goes. You use that one, you get to the next one. Hey, look what happened at that restaurant, though, right? Or simply send out some food, and I'm gonna take some stories and see what happens. Yeah. Start getting DMs. Oh, can I get a reservation there?
And then you know how it goes with a business. Like when you see something working, then you go all in. So at that point, like nothing else mattered. And the moment that we had our first couple clients that trusted us, and if you guys ever see this, thank you so much. They started trusting us. We saw it was working, and then it was just like all in, like, let's go, like shut out everything else. And let's just crush this agency, right? Start offering new services and stuff like that. So sort of how it happened, and a little bit of the beginning, that's like kind of where we were.
So how did you guys get your first, 5 clients? I feel like that's the toughest.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we were blessed in the fact that through nightlife, we already were associating ourselves with brands, right? Yep. So like a beer brand, tequila brand, clothing brands, right? They would say, hey, wear this when you go out tonight, right? So those were the people that we actually went to first, the ones that we already established trust with, right? And I think that kind of goes over a lot of people's heads when they start a business. It's like, okay, but don't start by trying to get a random person as a client. Think about who you know, who's in your network. If you have 1,000 followers, do all 1,000 know that you have a digital agency? Probably not. Probably 20, 30 of them. So focus on those first 1,000. I think that's what we did. Focused on brands we already worked with, already established trust with. They knew us. And again, we were doing shit for almost free. Like if we told you the amount, if we told you the monthly retainer amounts, you'd be like, how did you guys
$500,
right?
$500 a month. Like,
but going above and beyond for everything, right?
And also, like I know we're in the digital age now, and everyone wants to do online shit, and I totally understand that because we're obviously partially in that as well. But you cannot underestimate the power of an in-person meeting. I think like still till this day, like that helped us get a lot of the deals that we've ever done, and even our biggest ones was like, you got to go sit down with someone in person. Like if you really want to convince someone to pay you every month on a retainer or whatever, like they want to see you. They want to feel that connection in person. You can't get that over Zoom. Like I don't care what no one says, which is like also I think why we're doing this podcast in person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a different type of conversation.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, looking into our network who like already trusts us, but then even then like sitting down with them and being
Still
like,
wasn't
hey.
easy, right? Because again, it's a new service, right?
Yes.
It's no longer like, okay, you'll drink tequila, you'll bottle shot tequila all night for this amount, right? Like now we're switching it up, right? And I think another thing we did, which bouncing back on the ego, which I see a lot of today, right? Someone will start an agency and all of a sudden their pricing is as if they've been in business for 10 years and they've worked with Prada, Gucci, Ferrari, and everyone, right? So it's like, you can't do that. We were very humble in that sense where we would charge them something we knew they would pay for a new service, but also go above and beyond, right? So yeah, maybe they were paying $500 a month, but now that would probably be $5,000 to $10,000 a month, right?
Yep.
But we had to start somewhere, right? No ego. We just said, hey, we got to prove to these people, right? Because we know, especially the first few clients, that's your bread and butter. That's how you're going to prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you guys were obviously still doing nightlife while you're starting it up.
Yep.
When did you make the decision to leave nightlife and go all in?
Well, that which by the way was like I probably want to say one of the best but also worst periods of my fucking life because we were doing 3 nights a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, depending on the week. And dude, that's every night drinking bottles of tequila,
Yes.
like crushing. Like
I have a
doing
lot of
really-
friends in nightlife here, and I'm
Okay.
just like, it's
How do
tough
you
to
do
balance.
it? Yeah. You like by the third night, like you're pretty much knocked out for the rest of the week, just trying to recover off the 2-3 nights that you had to promote, right?
Yep.
So, man, honestly, at the beginning we were doing that because when we started the agency, we're like, okay, like he mentioned, we're in nightlife, so if people like, we also need this like, we have this feeling of like we need to prove to people that we can be professionals. Like you'll see us on Friday, Saturday night chugging bottles on our IG story, but come Monday, like we're professionals, like in our office doing big man work, you know? So with that being said, we're like, we got to get an office. So right away, we spent a couple months looking for offices. We found one we liked. We dropped it, like, and I think at the time it was like 5 or 6K a month, and we had 0 clients. So now we're like, okay, 6. We have this fucking office that we're paying for every month that we have no clients. Like this is crazy. So that forced us to have to do nightlife still.
Yeah.
So we did nightlife 2019, well, way before, but during the building of the business when we started 2019, and we did it all the way up until the pandemic. And again, the reason we were doing that was to pay the bills. So pretty much every dollar we were making from nightlife, which I think maybe at the time was 10K a month, like between both of us.
Total.
Yeah. We were just like paying rent, paying our like first few employees, like, you know, paying all our subcontractors. Cause like you mentioned, even once we got our first few contracts, there may be $500 a month maximum. Like our biggest one, maybe in the first 6 months was like $1,200 a month, which like, that's fucking nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So we still had to do nightlife to pay the bills. And that's another thing where it's like he was saying, like, okay, we're basically going to work for free on the agency side just to build exposure and show that we can do this, but we're still going to crush bottles on the weekend to make sure we can pay for the other business to keep it flowing.
Crazy.
So yeah, we did that from I'd say beginning of 2019 all the way through to the pandemic. And I'd say closer to when the world shut down, we were already having conversations like, okay, we need to get out of nightlife now. Like it's getting to that point where it's like, we need to get the fuck out. But also when the money's so good and it's helping pay the bills, it's hard to leave.
Correct.
Right. So that was one of the biggest blessings of the pandemic, that it happened. The club shut down and it pretty much forced us. We had no choice. Well, clubs are closed now. And like I said, it wasn't like Miami for 2 months. Toronto was years that we were closed. So clubs are closed and we just kind of looked at each other and said, perfect. This is exactly our way out.
Time to go all in.
Yeah, that's it. Now we can really move that aside. And sure, that extra 10K, it hurts not having it, but now we got to find another way. And then that's kind of where we went 10 times harder.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this stuff in life, you have to see it like the half glass.
Yes.
You know, full versus half glass empty, right? Like people can say, like, man, like now I got to leave this, I lose my income. Or you can see it as, hey, this is a sign, let's go all in.
Yep.
Right.
And that's how we look at things. We look at those things as always blessings.
Yeah.
Always. If we're going to give up after that, we weren't serious to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think if you're a true entrepreneur, when you get knocked down, when you lose a big client, a big sponsorship deal, a big whatever, like a big source of income, like if you're a real entrepreneur, you're looking at that and saying, I have to go 10 times harder now. Like maybe I was a little comfortable. Maybe I needed that, right? Whereas like I don't think if you're a real entrepreneur, you're not really gonna see it that way. You're gonna cry about it for a while. You're gonna whatever.
And another thing too, like we always say what we're gonna do before we do it a lot. Like we put it out there, like this is what we want to, this is who we're gonna be, or this is where we're gonna be in a year. And I think that pressure put on us really helps us move and shake, because we don't want anyone to say, oh, these guys didn't do what they said. We're very like that. We're like, if we say we're gonna do something, we'll do everything possible to get there, right? And we don't just say it just to, for some clout or
but like you said, we'll literally like if we have a goal or something, like we'll go on IG and be like, we're doing this. And then it's just like that, like you can't back down now.
Yes.
So that's kind of the one thing I like. And so that was sort of, again, when we said we're gonna be agency owners and we're gonna do all this shit, we told everyone before we did it. And then it was just like that pressure to like, okay, well, I'll look like an idiot if I don't do it now.
Yeah.
So I have to do it. You know what I mean?
And a lot of these things, it reinforces your guys' character and reputation, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you guys know there's a lot of people who say they're going to do something and don't do it,
Yeah.
right? And that's the other way. But if you can do what you say, which is very few people, you're going to just double down and stand out and keep going.
You gain respect, right?
Yeah.
You just gain a level of respect. And then I think that's when other bigger entrepreneurs, maybe that you want to get in contact with, you want to do work with, have on the podcast, when they see that you said something and you did it, they're way more inclined to be like, yeah, I'll fuck with this guy. You know what I mean? And then that's why we like using IG to do that, or, whatever platform you use mainly. That's why we like to put it out there, because people can look back. Oh shit, a year ago, this guy said he was going to buy a Ferrari and he was going to grow this business to 7 figures, 8 figures. A year later, here he is, his Ferrari, and his agency's doing 10 feet, whatever.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, there's a respect aspect. So that's the beauty, I think, also of like using these platforms to sort of set these goals. And it's also like it's a little like autobiography of like who you are and the goals you set, and did you actually do what you said you were going to do, right? We like using social media for that aspect to like set the goals and really like tell people the story, like how we got to where we are today, type of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think you need to have as an entrepreneur, like, I think you need to have a good track record of doing things that you said you were going to do. Right. I think that's what people look at. That builds the most trust, but I think that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Your track record of how many times did this guy do what he said he was going to do? I think that's very powerful. So when people put it out there, they should mean it, because people really, they're either going to be attracted to you and say, wow, I got to be near this guy. I got to know what he's doing. Or the opposite. This guy's been saying he's going to do this for 5 years, yet he hasn't done it.
100%. And people know.
They know.
Yes.
They know. They
Yeah.
can see
You
right
pick
through
up
it.
fast. You can see right through this stuff. So, cool. Pandemic happens, right? Leave nightlife. Obviously, the pandemic isn't the most ideal situation because of restaurants and stuff as well, right? So, how did you guys navigate that point?
Yeah. So essentially from there, I think we did like a couple shroom trips just to get the mind to get the mind going and get clear headed on our intentions and what we thought would be the best move, going forward. And then, like I said, it was kind of just an idea of where we're like, okay, everyone is on their phone 100 times more. Like, we're trying to tell our clients, like, guys, this is the time, because not all our clients were hospitality. We had a big chunk of them, but we had products, we had services, other things that we're doing, and we're trying to tell them, like, guys, everyone is on their phones 100 times more. They're stuck at home, they're not working, they're doing nothing. Like, this is like a whole new fucking plot of land on IG fucking real estate just opened up, and like, who's gonna take that? Like, who's gonna take that? So, we're trying to tell businesses that, but then at the same time, like I said, a lot of them weren't really listening. And then that's when I turned to him and said, we got to start the fucking podcast. And again, starting the podcast, initially, the thought process wasn't that we were going to make money from it. It wasn't that we were going to blow up and this would be like our next big business. It was more of like, okay, maybe we can talk about everything that like we're talking about in private, of like why businesses should be online more now than ever, all these different things. And hopefully that will kind of, open some businesses' eyes if they're thinking about doing digital marketing or whatever, that like we'll be sort of top of mind. So that was literally our next move. Like, it wasn't really too calculated. It was just like, start the podcast. It'll help our personal brands. It'll kind of help us educate. And hopefully that will bring the agency
Some clients.
Which again, even on the agency side, I think one thing we decided to do, maybe a bit pre-pandemic, but we always said, no matter what, we're going to continue to market neighborhood, because we saw a lot of digital agencies around that they had great clients, they had great services, but they were not marketing themselves as they would a client. And I never understood that. I was like, why don't they just keep marketing themselves? Like, they have a great client, that doesn't mean that they don't have no engagement or no presence online. So I think that was something that we doubled down on as well with neighborhood.
No, that was a big thing when we even started the like you said, we started the agency. That was something that he had in mind that I think was a genius thing. Like, you probably can't really name any like big agencies like based off their brand. Like, none of them really carry a brand. It's more of just like, who's the founder behind it. But what's
their clients
and who are their clients? But there's no agencies we noticed that were like actually creating a culture around the agency.
Because I was just like, okay, if I'm gonna go to a marketing agency, don't I want to see how they market themselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was confusing, and I didn't see many at the time. Maybe now there's many more that are marketing themselves and doing more guerrilla marketing or anything like that. But at that point, I was just like, no matter what, if we just continue to market ourselves, we'll be good, because that's the proof. People were coming to us and say, I want to market with you because we saw what you did with neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a key point for anyone trying to start an agency out there or thinking about starting an agency. I think that always keep focusing on the agency, the marketing of the agency itself, because one day you can have no clients, right? But if you continue to focus on your brand, you'll actually seem bigger than you are, right? So that's what we did online very well. We seemed much bigger than we were. We were competing with some of the biggest agencies in Canada at that point on an online basis, right? Now they must have had maybe 50 employees, but if you just saw one page, our Instagram versus another, you would actually think we're the bigger agency.
Same.
So that's why there was internships coming to us, hundreds, right? People that were graduating with an MBA in business, that had offers at Deloitte, the MLSE, big corporations. They wanted to come work with us.
Because we seemed cool online.
Yeah,
Like, that's truly
smart.
what it was.
So you're building culture that way as well. And I that's what I was very strong on that point.
And it was, and also it was, and still is, a point of, a point of focus for an exit strategy. Like, can this agency, like, if someone wants to buy our agency one day, and that's the goal, maybe 5-10 years down the road, if we have a bigger agency that wants to buy us, if the agency is only being pushed by us personally, like, people only want to work with the agency because of Anthony or Ernesto, no agency is going to buy you. The agency has to live on its own as a brand for another agency to want to come buy you, right?
Yep.
So if we can now remove Anthony and Ernesto from Neighborhood, and Neighborhood still crushing clients on its own, like, you have a better chance of a massive agency coming and saying, yeah, we'll buy you, because you're not so connected to the founder. If the founder walks away after the purchase, this business is still going to run. People know Neighborhood as its own, not Anthony and Ernesto own this agency. Oh, what's the agency called? I think it's like Neighborhood or something. It's like, no, Neighborhood's the agency. Cool. I didn't even know Anthony and Ernesto were behind that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And
so that was always our way of thinking.
And that's a sweet spot too, when you start to realize that your clients are no longer your buddy from high school or your friend or your cousin. Once you start to pass that, you're on the right track. Once you get someone, I never heard this person before, I don't know who this is.
I found you guys online.
I remember the first couple of clients we had like that, and we were so excited. We were so pumped. We're like, wait, this person doesn't know me or Ann? This is what we wanted, right? Because you can get used to that at the end of the day. You can get used to being that person that I need to be here giving the clients and putting the word out. But that's why you need to focus on the brand itself, right? It becomes just as big as you or even bigger.
Yep.
So full circle to answer your question, our like pandemic hits, we lose the clients. We're like, okay, starting the podcast, that's going to help our personal brands and also can still potentially bring business to the agency. And the agency, we're still going to do things that are going to push the brand of the agency regardless. So, like, again, to keep in mind, like, our account is just depleting every month because we're not really gaining many new clients or any at all.
And you're losing because of the pandemic.
Exactly. But we're still, funding this now, this podcast, and we're still doing things that are promoting the brand. So we went out and got like a billboard at Dundas Square, which is like Toronto's version of Times Square. Like, we went and like just blew racks on that, like different things to still make people think like, oh my God, pandemic, all these people lost these clients, but Neighborhood's still going like that? Like, oh shit, okay. Yeah. So those were kind of the two things that we decided to do when the pandemic hit.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So when did the podcast start to take off now? Right? Because I'm sure you guys were doing both at the same time. Yeah. I'm sure the pandemic, you were guys just trying to make it through essentially versus like try and grow. Where did the shift start to happen, I'd say, on the podcast side?
For the pod, I mean, it was the fucking slowest grind of all time.
Yeah.
Like it was actually the agency actually picked up very quickly again.
Really?
I'd say 6 months, like March 2020, everything shut down. Within 6 months, I think we were like right back with the agency.
It was all, yeah, it was weird because I think people started to realize, okay, this is going to end eventually and I got to get back in it. And a lot of people felt behind too, because there was agencies like ours and businesses like ours that doubled down and went even harder, right? So people felt like a FOMO, I feel, as well,
Yeah.
right? Where they're like, they have to catch up. Oh shit, now shit's opening. Okay, spend all our money back on marketing, right?
Yep.
So we felt that as well. That came through. But even with the podcast, I want to mention this. We didn't start a podcast so that we could blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a key. We didn't start it so that we can have 100,000 subscribers or do all this cool shit that we're doing now. Actually, we just did it because we liked doing it, right? And I think that also goes over a lot of people's head nowadays, right? They just see someone like yourself. They're like, oh, look at this podcast setup. Look at him, he's smashing it. I just want to do it so I feel that way too, right? And you can tell when that happens. I'm going off on a tangent a bit here.
No, go.
But yeah, that was a key for us. And I think that's what let us go so hard for so long without growth, because I would say,
Well, dude, you gotta say, we probably had almost 100 episodes. And even with 100 episodes, there was maybe a handful of them. Maybe you count on two hands how many episodes reached 1,000.
yeah.
Maybe one hand.
Wow.
So it was the slowest fucking grind of all time.
I think after 100 episodes, we might have had maybe 500-600 subs.
Wow.
Yeah. But so like he said, we were
Yeah.
doing it because we liked it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even like, that's the thing. It was like, if this thing, there wasn't even like, we didn't even have a convo to
No.
say if this thing blows up. We never thought it would.
Yeah.
We literally just enjoyed doing it because we were getting to sit down with people. And a lot of them, if you go back to our first 50, 100 episodes, you probably have no idea who they are.
But you know what? A lot of them also became our client, which was sick.
That's it.
But
So those were the benefits we saw from it. We're like, okay, dope conversation. Got to sit down with this guy, tell his story. Wow, he actually likes us more now, because you know how it is with a podcast. You sit down with someone, you're best friends after.
Yep.
So these people would also see our brand, see our studio, and be like, wow. So it was exposing neighborhood as well. So I think that was probably the only benefit that we were really strong on at that point. Besides, obviously, liking the
that was
podcast
it. I would
itself.
say the biggest thing was that we liked it, straight up. The biggest thing was that we just liked doing it. But where did we start to see a more of an uptick? Because it was a very slow. The uptick came when we actually started speaking out. Now, when I say speaking out, again, just to reference, like we're in Miami. Miami was shut down for 2 months. Freedom fucking state. Like do whatever the fuck you want here, right? Toronto was like...
It's the polar opposite.
It was like, yeah, dude, shut down. Don't leave your house. Wear 700 masks. Like, get every, whatever. I don't want to get you fucking demonetized here. Do a lot of things that we didn't like. We didn't like anyway. So, we got to a point where we had this little tiny following, and then we were just like, dude, like, there's so much crazy corrupt shit happening in Canada. Let's just like go on a tangent and start talking about it. Which like. We also have we have two other partners now, but at the time we had one other partner in the agency, which is Anna. Shout out Anna. It's actually Ernesto's sister. And so when we started, okay, so just to break it down. So pandemic happens, okay, whatever. We start the podcast, we're talking about business. And as the pandemic continues in Canada and they're not opening up businesses and they're not doing anything like that, let's say 2021, we really started to speak out. We just like didn't care. We said anything we wanted, like out against the government, shitting on Trudeau, our prime minister, whatever, saying anything, like whatever. And that's when people started to really fuck with the podcast, to be honest. They're like, holy shit, there's these like two guys like who are just like an agency. I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? And they're saying everything that like I want to say, I'm thinking, but I'm too scared because I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to like not be able to provide for my family, whatever. I don't want to lose friends. And
we were like their mouthpiece at that point.
And we were like just these two schmucks that were just like saying whatever the fuck we wanted. And that's when the podcast started to like gain a little more traction.
It went from 100 subs to 500 subs.
Yeah. When I say a little, 400 subs, not much.
Yeah.
But that's when it really started to pick up. We started speaking our mind. And then that's kind of where the podcast took a real life of its own.
And I want to touch on that quickly because I think, again, we were being super genuine the whole time, right? And we weren't scared to say what we wanted to say. And I think a lot of people put themselves in their own box where they can't say certain things, they can't feel certain things because of the people around them. And I mean, once we did that and we saw how people reacted, and they loved it. And a lot of people even said like, oh, like how about like your agency though? What if you lose clients and stuff? And it actually went the other way, and we actually started getting a lot more clients that had similar values to us. They didn't care how good we were at social media. They just like, you fucking think like me? Let me sign the
I have a
contract.
business. Yeah, let's go.
Right. So you never know how things are gonna play out when you follow your gut and you just stay true to like your real morals and your values.
So yeah, that's kind of where it took off. We started speaking our mind like from a political standpoint, which again, we never thought we would do. But that was kind of the beauty of the podcast, is that we had this starting direction, but then we're just like, whatever, we didn't care. Like we weren't planning for it to blow up. We weren't planning for anything. So it was just like a place that every week we could just talk our shit.
Yeah. So were you guys filming one episode a week, or what was the cadence?
Yeah,
we've changed. We
so
switched it up.
The first, what was it, the first season or the second
No,
season?
second.
Recorded the whole thing.
First season we did one a week, and we did I think like maybe 30-ish episodes.
No, 15 maybe.
You think
it
less?
was
Yeah.
less, it was
Okay.
less, yeah.
Maybe 15, 20 episodes.
Yeah.
Then like the second season, we tried to do this thing where we filmed everything first and then released the whole
is
season every
insane.
week,
Wow.
which was kind of stupid
We
because
were trying to be efficient because we had the agency, right?
Yes,
So we're like,
yes.
fuck, like we're not pro podcasters. We can't just leave our business and do this. So we actually recorded a whole season
yeah.
and then released the whole season.
We did
was
that,
like,
and then we
wow.
switched up to like, then we started doing 2 a week, releasing 2 podcasts a week, which was crazy because then you got to film like fucking 8 podcasts in a week. It was ridiculous. So we've tried a little bit of everything, but during that come up point, that little, like I said, 100 subscribers to 500 was like every 2 a week. That was where we started to notice, because then YouTube's like, oh, okay, you're feeding us more content, feeding the algorithm, so we'll kind of push you a little bit more.
Interesting.
That was the cadence
and
at that
we
point.
had some experience with content creation and what would hit, what wouldn't hit. And man, we were pumping out like all types of content from an episode. Like we would have the cover art go out, we'd have photos behind the scenes, we'd have reels go out, clips go out, the full episode go out. And at that point, again, this is like, what year is it?
This is early 2020.
Yeah. So you would think reels weren't that popular back then. They weren't. It wasn't like you saw a lot of podcasters with the subtitles in 2020. You would never see that. So we were one of the first people, I would say, in that province or country, to be honest, from what I've seen, doing that type of content, and the guest would love it. So that's how we got a lot of guests, because of the content. They would see the content we're creating for other guests, and they're like, I want that too.
Whoa, a reel of me talking? Like,
yeah, they never had it
remember,
before.
no one was
Yeah,
like,
no one's
it was
doing it.
2020. No one's chopping up podcasts, you know, in that short form, real format. No one's doing it. So we're just like, what the fuck? Like, this is the easiest thing ever. And then, like he said, yeah, like we'd have one person on, and then we'd get the bigger guest, because the bigger guest would be like, whoa, I want a video of me like saying something really cool. You know what I mean? And I can post it on my IG. So we use that to kind of level up the guests every time as well.
And again, being in Canada, like media is always behind there.
Yeah, way behind.
So it could have been popular here already, which I'm sure it was, or in the US in general. But that time, like, you could count on your hand how many podcasts there were.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you started to see the uptick in the podcast. Now what? Like it's like, okay, do we start doubling down here, take it more seriously? Like, because, you know, running a business full time, it's very tough to think about even just 2 different things.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what was your guys' thought process now?
So yeah, when we started seeing the uptick, like I said, we started speaking out more from a political, like our ideologies, and putting that out. That's when we noticed like the jump. And then we were just like, yeah, maybe there's something here. But again, when I say something here, I don't even mean that there was like, we thought that we could make money. We were just like, oh, okay, like we can just build an audience, like, and whatever that does for us in the future, like, again, maybe more clients for neighborhood, for the agency. So then we started doubling down in the sense of like, we started like really honing in on like making our content really good. Production level went up. We actually moved offices to like a more aesthetically pleasing office.
Nice.
We got the plants in the background. Like, we did this whole big thing. And then I would say that's kind of how we more doubled down. But then the biggest thing was, I guess, I'm sure you want to get to this point. I'll just kind of segue us into that. The biggest uptick for us, I'd say, and maybe not even from a view standpoint, but like us realizing like, okay, this could be huge, was we had 905 Shooter on. So 905 Shooter, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was Nelk's, one of Nelk's videographers. in the really early days, and was like pretty much there for like a massive portion of their come up. So he got kicked out of Nelk at that point. He's from Canada, from Toronto as well, or just outside Toronto. So I think I got in contact with him. I'm like, dude, come on the pod. This is cool. Like, whatever. I was a fan of Nelk at the time. He wasn't so much. I eventually got him into it. But so I'm like, dude, I'm like, hey, man, we got to get this guy 905 shooter. This would be sick for the pod, whatever. And so we have him on. And I make like a point of like looking at the camera, and we have this clip. And I look at the camera and I'm like, yo, Kyle, I know you're going to see this. Like, and if you do, bro, hit me up. Like, we need you on the pod. And, you know, fast forward months, he ends up seeing it. And then I get a message from one of my buddies, and he's like, yo, they just mentioned you guys on the Full Send podcast. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about?
Again, 500 subs.
Yeah, again, we have no, like, yeah, we're under 1,000 subs, like probably 500-600. And he's like, no, dude, like they mentioned you guys. I'm like, but what? I'm like, send me the clip. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it was actually at the beginning, they were doing some audio only episodes, and they did one with 905 Shooter, like a couple months after he came on our pod. And like, again, it was audio only. And my buddy like sends me the clip, and Kyle goes to him like, hey man, I saw you like did some like local Toronto podcast. Who are those guys? And then so shout out 905 Jason. Jason's like,
Shout out 90.
He's like, yeah, they're just these guys from Toronto, this podcast, whatever. And Kyle was like, yeah, it was a cool pod. And then like, that was it. The thing was like 7 seconds of their like hour and 30 podcast. I sent it to him right away. I'm like, dude, we're on the map. We're on the radar. Like, they saw us. Like, this is crazy. And that was the point where we realized like, whoa, okay, if we get more strategic with like who we bring on, we can like try to like get someone bigger to notice us. Like, what, like, you know, so then there started becoming more like, okay, we're going to have him on because this guy follows him. So if he posts a clip from our podcast, this guy might see it. Like, we were choosing guests literally based on like who knows them. So that then we started getting strategic in that at that point. But I think like the first time we got really strategic with it, it ended up just like working. So we got Kyle's attention. And then, you know, I think maybe it was like a week or two after my buddy sent me the clip, I was just like at home, like just stoned on my couch on a Friday. I was just like, fuck, finally no work. Like, I'm done. Let me just chill out tonight. Smoking a joint, whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to DM Kyle, and he probably will never see it, but whatever. I'm just going to DM him and be like, bro, big fan. I know, whatever. Like, you know of us to some extent. Would love to get you on the pod. And so it's like a Friday night. I send him the DM. No response Friday night. Saturday morning, I look at my phone. I got a response. Kyle, whatever. And he's like, yeah, bro, I'm down. And that was all he said. I screenshot it, sent it to him. I'm like, this is going to be our biggest fucking guest. This is amazing. Oh my God. What the fuck? Whatever. So crazy. So pretty much I'm like, okay, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell him that, cause they're in LA. I'm going to tell him that we're planning this trip to LA and we're already going to be there. So like, hey, may as well have you on while we're there. We had no plans of going to LA, nothing. So I hit him with this whole thing. I'm like, hey man, I think it was like in November, from this day to this day, we're going to be in LA. Like, we may as well have you on type of thing. And he responds and he's like, hey man, honestly, like, we're just hella busy. And like, I don't want to like promise you a date and I can't do it. But I think it'd be cool to like get you like to come do it. I'm going to be back in Toronto, like, near Christmas, whatever, to be with my family. So maybe we can do it then. I think it'd be cool to do it in your studio, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Sounds good. Like, as long as we're in contact at this point. And then I guess you want me to still keep going on that storyline?
Okay.
Good story.
After this, we go to Miami.
So then, okay, so that happens and we're like, okay, he's seeing us, whatever. And then, like I said, that was kind of the point where we're like, okay.
Was this a year ago, by the way, or what?
This was the end of 2021. So between like November and December of 2021 is when that DM conversation goes through and whatever. So leading into January of 2022, now we're kind of staying on top of him and just seeing what he's doing, because we're like trying to like find a way to get him on, because we know that'll springboard the pod, right?
Yes.
And he actually puts out a tweet on Twitter and he goes, yo, we're thinking of signing a podcast like to come under the Full Send umbrella. Like, let me know who you think we should sign. And I saw that and I sent it to him. And he's like, okay, we are going to send this out to everybody that we fucking know and make sure that they respond to it being like at the MBH podcast, whatever.
Smart.
And that's what we did. And so I think like he puts a tweet out and maybe we had like 300-400 of like our 500 subscribers go and respond. MBH podcast, MBH podcast, MBH. And so I'm pretty sure it just got to a point where he's like, holy fuck, okay, I need to like just see what's up with these guys.
Yeah.
And so that happens. And maybe like a week after that tweet, I get a notification on my phone at Kyle is following you. I'm like, here we fucking go. So I see that. I look at the DMs. He's like, yo, send me your number. I'm like, here we go. So I'm like keeping him. I'm keeping him like in the loop of like what's going on. So I send him my number and then he shoots me this like pretty much this long text of being like, listen, we're interested in bringing you guys under the umbrella, whatever. Like we want to test it out. Like want to bring a pod under, you know, are you guys willing to move to the States? Are you willing to leave everything behind? Whatever. And I'm not even asking him at this point because I know what his answer is. I'm like, yes. Yeah. I'll leave tomorrow. Like you just let me fucking know. Yeah. And he's like, okay, cool. Like we're going to draft up like a contract and like figure things out. Give me like a week or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. Week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks goes by, nothing. 3 weeks goes by, nothing. And again, there's that part of like where you're an entrepreneur where do you say like, do you cry about it? Or do you say like, hey, maybe now we got to go 10 times harder. So it's sort of like he has no choice type of thing.
Yep.
And so we pretty much looked at each other and we're like, okay, again, Toronto's in its like 5th lockdown at this point. And we were like, we got to get the fuck out of here. The only place that's open is Miami. And we're noticing that everybody's in Miami. Yep. Like any of the biggest guests we'd ever want are in Miami. So we pretty much February of 2022. Yep. Yeah. February 2022 last year, we picked up and we left to Miami and we sort of just booked a one-way and we're like, we're setting goals here. One of our goals is to like basically film a whole like season, MBH podcast season in Miami with like a whole different audience or guests. And we want to buy a house. So we're pretty much not leaving Miami until we have like 30 episodes filmed and we own a house. And so that was February 2022. We left and did that. And then, yeah, we just started crushing pods left, right, and center. It was cool because we're meeting all these new people from Miami. They're introducing us to more people. And so now we're getting a little more like ingrained in the culture here. We end up buying the house, whatever. That's another story. And then I think it was, so we got in Miami end of February 2022. And then it was April, I believe. Yeah. One random like second week of April. And so I'll like give some context to this. From January when I had that text conversation with Kyle about he's supposed like we're literally just waiting for him to send a contract. Yeah. Every like week I'm sending him a message being like, hey bro, let me know if you need my help on anything, like whatever I can do.
Wow, every week.
Dude, every single week sending voice notes.
I mean, maybe even more than every
probably
week.
more, whatever. I don't want to look like an idiot, but
I was like, no, but it just goes to show like how much you have to get involved.
Dude, I'm like, listen, he's busy and he's probably not really trying to fucking R-bomb me, but the guy's busy. The guy's like has fucking Donald Trump on the podcast. Like, who am I? Exactly, you know what I mean? Yeah. Again, no ego. So I'm removing my ego to look like an idiot to DM this or text this guy every single week, probably every 3 days. Dude, I'm sending voice notes. I'm sending everything. No responses. Months. Okay. Months I'm talking. There's probably like I think I still have the conversation. I'll show you after. Like I could scroll for days of just me talking to myself. Wow. But I was like, I do not fucking care. And I always bring this back. When we got to Miami, the Kanye Netflix doc dropped, and there was a part in the episode in one of the episodes where he goes like, I would have never like met Jay-Z and got this song if I didn't like open my mouth. Closed mouths don't get fed. So I was like, damn, closed mouths don't get fed. That's a fact. So then that made me go harder. So then I'm every day I'm hitting him. Like I didn't care. And he's still not responding and I'm still going every day. And then finally, randomly, dude, it's like I think it was like a Friday. And
Thursday.
Was it a Thursday?
Yeah.
You would remember this. Yeah. It was a Thursday and we're just taking a drive over the bridge, Port of Miami, just like manifesting, looking at the houses, just loving life, great weather. I got a text message from Kyle. I'm like, holy fuck. Open it up.
It was like 4 p.m.
It's 4 p.m. 4 p.m. And he's like, yo, I'm landing in Miami tonight at like 7. If you guys want to do the pod tonight, like let's get it done. But it needs to be tonight.
Wow.
I'm like, here we go. I'm like, dude, turn the fucking car around. Turn the fucking car. We got to go home. We got to figure this out. And I'm like, yeah, bro, no problem. Like, I'll hit you back with the dates, not the date, the time, the location, whatever. So we circle back to the house and we're going crazy. The studio that we were shooting at was already booked for the day. And like, they wouldn't, like, it was this whole mess over there. So now I'm on fucking Google. I'm on IG. I'm trying to just find like a shooter to come help us get this done. And we're having like trouble with that. And it's leading into like maybe 2.5 hours before the time that I told them we were going to be shooting at, that I still don't have an answer on like who's shooting it and location and everything. And then finally we get in contact with the owner of the studio that we had been shooting that like Miami season at. Yeah. And we're like, listen, dude, we have Kyle Forjard, Nelk, like massive guests. Like, I know you guys are booked up until 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., which is when you guys close. I'm like, dude, we'll pay extra. We'll pay whatever. Like, just let us use the fucking studio. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I got you guys, whatever, no problem. So we end up giving him that. And that's when we first met Kyle. And I think Kyle came, Gabe came, and my guy Visual Slayer, shout out Visual Slayer, legend. And that's when we first met them. We do that pod, amazing pod, go out with them that night, meet Steve, meet pretty much almost the whole gang, go party with them. And then we release that episode, and that is when everything changes. We go from like, I think at that point, because of the Miami thing, like we had got up to like 1,800 subscribers. We do that episode, we instantly jump. As soon as it drops, we jump to like 26,000.
That's crazy.
Like in not even a full day. The video does like 1 million views. It's at like 1.5 now, but I think it did like 1 million views in the first like couple days. Dana White's posting the episode, Dave Grubb, all these people just like, we're losing our mind. TMZ's posting the episode.
And you guys didn't even like market it, or they just like found it from organic?
It was I mean, like like the reason I think it blew up so much was because Kyle had the full send pod already, but no one had interviewed Kyle on like his story.
That's interesting.
You know?
Yes.
So we were the first ones. And I got to say thank you to Kyle for giving us that opportunity, because whether we go on to sign with them later, but that just gave us so much credibility, and like people started really fucking with us. Like, I know it's still let's say it was 25,000 subscribers, like still is not a lot. But from hustling for almost 2 years to be at 1,800, and then in one episode jump to 25,000, we're like, holy shit. So that was like, it was organic, dude. Everyone picked it up. TMZ, everybody picked it up. Like,
yeah, we were just sitting in front of the computer, just refreshing. Every time we refreshed, it was like another like 10,000 views. It was crazy.
Yeah,
That's
we never
crazy.
seen anything like that.
We'd never seen it.
I
think we have a video of us watching.
I do. It's on my IG. We our highest episode maybe was like 4,000, and we were gaining 4,000 in 2 seconds.
Wow.
On that episode. Yeah. So that is when it like really was like solidified. Like, okay, now there's like, this is it. Like, we got to. We've done it 100 times at that point, but this is when we got to like take the next step.
Yeah.
And
double
so that
down
was kind
again.
of that. Yeah.
But this just goes to show, like, you can't quit on this stuff, right? No. You can go 2 years and do it, and then here's the thing: most people don't even make even 1 year, right?
Yeah.
So after 3 months, they'll stop. Yeah. But it just shows all it takes is that one big catalyst, and boom.
Yeah. I mean, we could have let anything get to us at that point. I mean, like he said, we were speaking out a lot too, which a lot of people didn't like. There was episodes we got fucking 80 views on. Mm-hmm. We could have just sat there and said, oh, like.
Well, I think
we loved it though. We used to think like this. We used to say, oh, if we got 60 views on an episode, me and this guy would look at each other like, yo, there's 60 people that would listen to us talk. Like, imagine 60 people were in this room right now.
That's what we used to say. We used to say like an episode would get like, honestly, like 105 views. And this is earlier on. And we'd be like, we're sitting in our office after. And we're like, dude, if there was 105 people standing in this room, we'd be nervous to talk to them. Like to do a presentation in front of them.
You make this is sick.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So we're like, that's the way we always kept like ourselves moving to the next point. Because then when it got to 200 views, we're like, bro, to speak in front of 200 people is nerve wracking. There's like 0.1% of people can do that. That's how we always kept it going. But yeah, man, it was just like, it was a mixture of like continuing not only to just do the podcast, but to like level it up, finding ways to make it better. Then we realized like you need an intro and you need an outro and you need to do this and you need to do that. And the thumbnails got to be more like this and the pictures got to be like that. And so all of that. But the big point I think anyone can take, value from this was like, you have to remove your ego, especially when you want to connect with like very important people, very busy people, very successful people. Like, if they don't answer you after one text, after 20 texts, like, you have to remember, yeah, like I was seeing myself as a fucking nobody. Like this is Kyle Forjard. He has Nelk. He has this massive corporation. They're crushing it. Like he's not answering me, but he's fucking busy. Like I didn't see it as like, oh, he doesn't care to answer me. No. And maybe for some of those moments, he didn't care to answer me. But I was just so fucking annoying and persistent that it was like, I think it got to a point where he's like, okay, fuck, I gotta answer these guys. Like I gotta answer them at some point. 300 messages, like fuck, right?
You respect the persistency at a certain point,
have to,
honestly.
There's stages, right? There's a point where it's like, this guy's annoying probably. Holy shit, this guy's really annoying. And then it's probably like, okay, I gotta respect the persistency. And I think that's kind of what happened. So no ego. You gotta have no ego in this game.
Yeah.
That's the big takeaway, I think.
That's amazing. So you do that podcast, it blows up. Now what? You guys are still putting out your cadence, but now you're getting way more views. How did it get to the point where, Full Send signs you guys?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we put that episode out, and then we follow it up with like how we got Kyle on the podcast, because that was like the question that we were getting from everybody. So we did a whole episode just on like me sort of explaining the story I just explained.
Yeah,
that did well, and then that just opened the doors, right? Like we ended up getting like Timepiece Trading, Neil from Timepiece Trading, obviously because he saw we did Kyle. He's friends with Steve. They work together, whatever. So our level of guests go up a little bit. Nothing crazy. Like we didn't go and get like super famous people right away because we were still nobodies at the end of the day. We then became like, I think, nobodies, but like because Kyle gave us a shot on that episode.
People were like intrigued.
They were intrigued. They're like,
why
okay.
them? Like why did he go on their podcast? Yeah. Neil, who else did we get that time?
Fuck, dude.
We started going very like Miami heavy, but also we tried to leverage it, right? Like obviously it just happened, so you kind of got to leverage that right away.
100%.
So we were reaching out to a lot of people, but I think it was May, June, maybe 2 months later is when we actually got signed.
So then, okay, like here's another story. So we do that podcast and whatever, and then a big thing was, again, at that point, like over 1 million views, thousands and thousands of comments. And like throughout the week that it gets posted, I'm in like constant communication with Kyle, and he's kind of just like, we're just going over it, and he's like, yo, dude, he's like, what's crazy is he's like, the Nelk audience is very critical. Like if they don't like something, he's like, they'll blast you, like they'll destroy you in the comments. He's like, but I'm noticing it's like 99% love. Like they really liked that episode. So I think that's kind of now giving him like a little bit of motivation to say, hey, maybe we can sign these boys. And like, if our audience already likes them, then this is like a good step. So we're in constant communication for like the first week after the episode. And then maybe at the end of that week, he's like, okay, like we're going to sign you boys. Like we're going to get the job. We're going to get this deal done. And we're like, okay, sick. And now again, this is me thinking he says that we're probably going to get this deal done within 2 weeks. Yeah, right. Yeah, fucking right. Yeah. I don't want to say he goes ghost again because he kind of does, but he gets busy. Again, the guy gets busy, has his whole thing going. And I literally go back to being the annoying guy, being like, hey, bro, let me know what you need to get this contract done. Like, I'll get a fucking whatever you need.
Yeah,
like,
we'll draft up the contract. We'll pay for everything. We didn't give a fuck.
After message, no response. And then finally, come like the end of May, he's like, okay, boom, sends us the contract. We go back and forth a little bit. Truthfully, we had no leverage, so there wasn't really much that we could say. Like we were still nobodies at the end of the day, and the opportunity they were giving us was amazing. So we went back and forth a little bit on the contract, but very minimal changes. And then come June, they sign us. We sign the paperwork, and then we go to LA to go to the Full Send headquarters and meet everybody. And then
that's when like the big change. Just banging out those guys at that point.
Yeah,
because we did John, Salim, Osgod,
Gabe Steiny. We did like a big like Full Send thing because it was cool because we were giving their audience and I guess the world, the YouTube world, an insight on like the background of who these guys are, right? Because they see them in the vlogs, they see them on camera, but they don't really know like Gabe's story. They don't know Steiny's story. They don't know Osgod's story. All these guys, right? So yeah, we go to LA, we meet the team. They're super nice. They show us the spot. But then we do that first episode with John, and that's kind of where we announce like, okay, cool. Like they announce like, hey, we just signed these boys. We announced our audience like, hey, we're signed. Okay, that's the real like stamp of approval. You get the co-sign from Full Send. Okay, now these guys are legit. And then that was kind of like the next like that was the next rocket like moment.
So was there any like negotiation involved there? And obviously you had no leverage in the contract.
Yeah.
And you obviously you don't have to share any specific details if you don't want to, but was it like a full buyout? Was it like a retainer type or like?
Yes, I would say it's more like a partnership than
Got
a buyout of that sort. That's how I.
Yeah,
would
no,
put
it
it.
is not a buyout by any means.
Yeah.
The best way to put it without giving you the contract essentially is, we're pretty much in partnership. We share some revenue streams, but IP is ours.
Got it.
So we own the IP, which was like truthfully, like they were never greedy about it at all. They were pretty like
They were super cool the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And again, you have to remember we didn't have any leverage too. So
Yeah.
there was a point in time where me and him just looked at each other and we just said, "Bro, sign the fucking contract."
Well, yeah, because
You know what I mean? I'm
Like,
just like,
bro, if they pull this shit, like we're going back to Toronto.
Because here's the thing, like we get a lawyer on retainer, and amazing lawyer. She did great, but she kept trying to like tell us like push for more here and push for more there, and I
I
literally
think she was just being a lawyer. She didn't understand the scale of what full send was compared to us. So she was just being a normal.
Yeah,
"Hey,
no,
maybe
no.
you guys should ask for this.
she was doing her job.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it got to a point where I had to be like, okay, listen, lady, like I gotta tell you straight
Listen,
now.
here's my lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
This
Yes.
is my JD.
Exactly.
Yes. I'm like, no, this is what the fuck the situation is. We're lucky to be here. We're lucky to even get this offer. Like, I'm done. I'm not negotiating anymore. Like,
I think I told you. I said I don't even want to. She better not talk to us again. Like, if this is done.
yeah, we're like, dude, we're signing this fucking contract. I don't care. They can have my firstborn. We're not. Which again, they did not at all. But I'm like, they could, and I don't care. We're doing this deal, whatever. So yeah, we go back and forth. But negotiation, like I said, we really like nothing. Like we had.
Like Ann said, we were super grateful. Like that, even we were able to get on these guys' radar on that scale.
and that
right?
they wanted
So
to give us this opportunity.
when it came down to a contract, we knew we were good. No matter, like we were like, yeah, send it over. I'm gonna fucking glance at it. Maybe I'll smoke a joint and check it out. And
Dude.
sign the fucking thing. That's
So
pretty
yeah,
much all
very
it was.
minimal negotiations again because we had no fucking leverage, and besides the no leverage, like we were just grateful, like just two fucking lads from Toronto, promoters, agency owners, podcast, like you know what I mean. We were just like, damn, like I can't even believe we're here again. Circling back to the beginning
people
of
always
our
tell you
convo.
shit. People always say, you know what, you guys are good, keep going, stuff like that. And we always heard that at 500 subs, right? But you never think someone on that scale is gonna pay attention. It just never crosses your mind.
Yeah.
Well, again,
You
it
know?
goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, we never started the pod to get here.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't even the path that it was
You would have
supposed to
quit
go.
it. You did.
Yeah,
That's it.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, just grateful. No negotiations. Sign the fucking. I mean, our lawyer tried.
You're like,
no.
yeah. Let me
We
send it to Lars.
we never used that
We'll
lawyer
review it
again.
and
By the
get
way,
back to you.
Yeah,
You're just
no,
like, all right, it's good.
No, I was
It's
like,
good.
dude, sign the fucking contract. We signed the contract, and then we go to LA, like I mentioned, and we do
Yeah.
all those pods to start. So that was like that whole period.
That's amazing. So when was this in 2022 at this point?
this was July, right?
So we pretty much go to LA in July, and then we spend a little bit of time there, and we do like July and August. We bang out these like really massive guests, and that's like now we're at the point where like we have episodes that are 300K, 500K. Like okay, we had Kyle who was the 1.5 million,
Yeah.
whatever, but that was the only one that reached sort of that stature. But now we got episodes they start doing hundreds of thousands, and that was like a big moment for us, obviously, because then you get. Then you start seeing money because the brand deals come in. So we really make fuck all from YouTube. Like we make peanuts from YouTube. But the brand deals was like, that was where it was like, okay, this is a legit business. We can start hiring a team around us because the team that was doing the podcast stuff was being technically paid on payroll by our agency. So our agency's funding this whole operation. So
I think we had the number actually. We had how much
we spent to do the podcast
up until that point.
up until that point. We had spent almost 200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So $200,000 with no thought that this would ever make us money back. Like, podcast for payment. We knew that it would get us whatever more clients for the agency, whatever, but we invested $200,000 and like, I can't even tell you the amount of hours, thousands of hours doing this thing with seeing this much return, zero return. So then we finally get some fucking sponsors and we're throwing some money around. We're like, okay, finally, here we fucking go. So what we actually did was two things. We hired, the employees that were being paid by our agency, but were doing like podcast work. We took them and like put them under the podcast. Now they're getting under payroll from Money Buys Happiness. And then the second thing was we've actually paid back the loan to our agency. because it also wasn't fair, right? We have other partners and who by the way never asked us to pay the agency back, but we're like, nah, fuck that. We got our accountant to basically break down every single cost. So like I said, it was very close to $200,000.
That's amazing.
And then we've been paying that, and we're pretty much done paying now, but we paid that back to the agency.
Wow.
So that was like, we made some money, like, thank God, bro. Like, holy shit. We can start to like funnel the money back to the agency and now build our own team out.
And now as you're getting profitable on the podcast side, you can
Yes.
spend that to reinvest into your guys' team. You guys have what, 3 people you said right now?
Right now,
3
including
people
ourselves.
that are like, what, on the MBH?
MBH is like us plus 3.
Yes.
Yeah. And who are 3 again?
So we got Jason.
Yeah, Jason.
Shout out Jay. We got Dean, who's our shooter. He's been shooting every episode since the first one.
Yes.
Unless we travel. He just started traveling with us. And then we got our guy Tony, who's our editor. He makes magic for us. So shout out to that whole team. I'm sure the team's going to grow as well because we're those type of guys that we invest in the team before we even get to that point. Before we have scaled, we already got that employee that's going to do that.
Yeah.
So that's just how we are. We've done that with the agency the same way. But
And I got to say that, and this is important. Of those 3 guys, Tony, it's a pretty special story. I think we did the John episode, and that was our first big one. And I get a random DM, I think, from this account that has like no photos, 75 follower, like it looks like a bot account. But I get this DM, and it's like, hey man, just saw your episode with John. You guys fucking killed it. Here's a link to a Google Drive, and I made you like 5 clips. Let me know what you think of them. That's all he said. Didn't try to sell me on anything, nothing. He's just like, love the episode. I made some clips for you guys. I'm like, okay. Click it, open them. I'm like, this is the best fucking editing work I've ever seen. Show him right away, and he's like, who is this kid? I go, dude, we got to get on a fucking Zoom call right now. Or where are you? Where do you live? He responds, I'm like, I'm in Germany. I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, okay, whatever. We get on a Zoom call, meet this kid, absolute fucking beauty, hard worker, whatever. And that's how we hired him. We hired him off of a DM from an account that looked like a bot, but he gave us that immediate value, gave us a level of like clips that I'd never seen before.
Wow.
And this was like, eventually everyone caught up. I want to say we were very early and one of the early adopters, but like the very dynamic subtitles popping in and out, the pictures, we were taking clips if the guest was talking about a certain thing that happened to them. We'd find a video clip of that. Like, so he really helped us take that next step there. And yeah, now he's part of that team full time. So to circle back, not to go on a tangent, right now it's us and 3 people under the podcast corp.
That's amazing. So before you guys signed, how are you getting guests, like basically after Kyle to before you guys signed with Full Send, and you were leveraging that, but was it still just cold DMs?
cold DMs.
Yeah.
Unless you're seeing something and you know someone and you're going to their mutual followings. Hey man, like, can you connect us with this person? Which we don't really do that often. We'll just cold DM someone. And I think after they go to the profile, they see Kyle was the most recent episode. I think it was a no-brainer for a lot of them. And then, I think after Kyle, it was pretty easy to get guests for us. I think before Kyle, obviously, it was a bit harder. We kind of just juiced our whole network as much as we could. Okay, who do we know? All right, let's get them on. After that, after Kyle, I think it was pretty easy to cold DM someone. But again, I mean, we've cold DM'd people that we never thought would answer. I mean, he's done it, I've done it. And there's a lot of power behind the cold DM, right? You never know who's looking at their messages, man, right? And I think that's something we learned along the way. And now, I think even now, presently, week to week, me and him sit down and we'll DM 50 people, and we'll get one.
Wow.
Who cares? We'll take one.
Yeah.
We're hitting up like big people, right?
Big
So
dogs,
we'll hit up 50 to 100 of them. And even if we get 1 or 2, it's a win for us, right? But you have to leverage that stuff. You have to.
Yep. So is that your guys' game plan in terms of getting future guests, or what's your strategy over the next?
Now the guests come from all over. Like, we've now built relationships like with music labels. So like we have a good relationship with Warner Music. We have a good relationship with Universal, where they have somebody on their team that if there's like an up and coming artist or anybody like coming into town, they'll be like, hey, where are you? We'll be like, hey, shout out Chantilly, shout out Jerry from Universal and Warner. Either one of them will just hit us up and be like, hey, where are you guys right now? And let's say we're in Miami. They'll be like, okay, cool. This artist is coming through to Miami. We got to give them some press. You guys down to do the pod? I could do a pod with them. So we'll get guests like from that. But the truth is, bro, the cold DM is still our number one way of getting guests.
Wow.
Now it's like cold DM. You go on their photos, you like a couple, you leave some comments, whatever. Like
You have to get their attention, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, we've done
Crazy
the
things.
most we can. Yeah.
yeah, we've done crazy things to get guests, but it's the cold DM is the absolute number one best way I think to get a guest. But also there's a part where you got to be realistic and unrealistic. Like when I sent that DM to Kyle the first time, the reason I did it was because I knew he had saw us already.
Yes.
So if by chance he's looking at his phone that day, he'll know who I am because he saw the pod with 905 Shooter. Now, you know, when we weren't at the level, like when we were a lot smaller, you know, I wasn't going and DMing fucking Beyonce thinking she's going to come on the pod. Like, I'm not an idiot. But I was going to bigger people who I knew would still check the DM and probably answer it.
It's
You see what I
calculated,
mean?
right? Or
Yeah.
you're going to someone that follows someone that was already on our pod, so maybe they have already heard of us, right?
You got to be smart. Like, yeah, you can't just go
Yeah.
DM Jay-Z and think he's going to respond. Like,
Exactly,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? There's still
Yeah.
an aspect of knowing self-awareness, knowing what level you're at and like who's probably going to answer and who's not. Now, you send out a couple of those dreamer DMs because you never know. But you also
We
gotta
like
be
to do
realistic.
those actually because we know one day they're going to open it and they're going to be on our podcast, and it's just a funny thing to bring back. Hey, like, I was in your DMs in 2017, and now you're on my show, right? It's kind of like a full circle moment. So we like to
Yeah.
do that. It's kind of like manifesting for
But that's the main way. Cold DM, dude.
cold
DM.
Just fucking DM people,
So
right?
you guys would just sit down every week, make a list of new people, and then
Yeah.
cold DM.
Literally just not even every week, dude. It was every day.
Yeah.
We're like, fuck, like whatever. Like we're just
Yeah.
gonna go. Because that's the thing is, it's like that's not even work, dude. We're on fucking Instagram anyways. Like,
Exactly.
how hard is it to send 50 messages? You can even copy and paste, be the same message.
Yeah.
Like it's
What
not.
about Adam 22 DM, right?
Adam 22 was a cold DM. He was he was a big cold DM guy. We got Patrick Bet David cold DM.
Wow. Straight
so-
cold DM.
Dude, honest, I want to say almost everybody was cold DM. Yeah, like
That
you
just,
know.
dude, social media is so powerful. It's like
Yeah,
what you guys
crazy.
were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
on.
crazy, man.
It's crazy.
And these people are all on their phones. They're on
Yeah.
it all day, just like us,
Yeah.
right? We tend to think, oh, they're not even gonna check their DMs. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what's your guys' goal for the podcast in the next 2 years? Or just few years?
Yeah,
Few years in
yeah,
general,
yeah.
you know?
I don't know if there's I would just say I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm gonna say just continuing to double down, find these moments where we experience growth and get to the next level, and then double down again, get better production, get a better studio, get a bigger team. I think just continuously growing it and finding those moments where it's like, okay, it's time for the next level. I think that's what I'm most excited about. I don't really care about like the numbers per se, because now you know why we don't care about numbers, because we started with nothing and experienced growth really quickly. So yeah, I would say there's some guests that we want to have in the next few years, some big guests.
Yep.
But for the most part, I'm excited to continue to grow this baby that we have, and continue to put people's stories out there. I think that's why we started this, to inspire people with other people's stories, give value, and now we're just doing it on a bigger scale. So continue to do that and be worldwide, man. I want everyone to know about us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think you touched more on like, want to keep providing value, keep having conversations that we like to have, never falter from who we are. Like, not just do pods for the views. If someone has a good story and they're completely unknown, we'll still do the podcast. Like, we're not view chasers by any means. We're really in it for the long run. Like, look at Joe Rogan. He's on episode like 4,000.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, so
That's
it's like,
crazy.
But he'll bring on someone you never heard
yeah,
of.
he'll bring on a guy, and
right?
just because he knows he has a cool story, and that's it. He does it because he wants to do it. And I think that's where we're at, like, especially because it has become a little more saturated, the space. That I think the key for like doing it long term is focusing on just good, like providing value in the episode, rather than, oh, let's get this person on just because we know it's going to get 50,000 views, 500,000 views, whatever. That's a big point. But it's like, let's circle it from more of a business perspective of where we want to be in the next, let's say 3 to 5 years. Is I think we'll get to a point with this pod where we'll have 20 to 30 employees. That's everything from people handling brand deals, customer relations, running our merch side of things, doing, production. Like, I guess I could say on this pod, like we're gonna, our plan is to start a daily show. So still have our weekly podcast, but we're actually looking to start a daily show. So that's going to need a whole other production team, another editing team. So these are all things we're going to focus on, but I think we can get this business, because now it's a podcast, but it is a business. I like to think we can get it to like 20, 30 employees within the next 3 to 5 years. And then, like he said, big guests, but I think I can name a few for sure. We need our hometown guy, Drake. I think Drake is in our 1 year plan.
That'd be sick.
I really think we can get him. We're close. He's liked some of our content, which already is like a big step for us. Jordan Peterson is somebody we absolutely want on the podcast. Drake, Jordan Peterson. Anybody else you're thinking of?
I mean,
we're working on Jordan Belfort. Wolf of Wall Street. He'd be a fucking legend to have on the pod. Joe Rogan, you know, he doesn't really do podcasts outside of his own, but hey, Joe, if you see this, hit us up. I think those are 4 big ones, but for me, I'll speak. I know it's for you too, but I gotta speak for myself. Drake, like we need the boy on the podcast, man. He like hometown guy, cut from the same cloth. So I think he is like I got a big fucking target on him right now. Yeah. So from a guest perspective, we got to get Drake on.
That'd be sick. So in terms of like, what's good is I see you guys are treating the podcast as a business, as its own entity, which I think is so good because that's how you guys are going to keep scaling and doubling down. In terms of monetizing, you know, outside of brand sponsorships and deals, obviously I think that's a big revenue source for you guys. Yeah. What other ways do you plan on monetizing?
I mean, the merch was always something that we get excited about. Merch is dope. We did merch before getting signed, and it went pretty well, to be honest.
We did a merch drop when we did that whole Miami season, and we sold like 500 pieces, which I know is not a lot, but for a podcast that had at the time 1,800 subscribers, like 500 people like and bought multiple things. So it's just like to have 500 people buy your shit for us was like, I think
that's a lot.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
We were blown away. We were fucking blown away.
I think what we did there was we were so focused, and we still are. We're focused on building community, right? We got that from nightlife. We care about the people that really like us, the loyal fan base, right? And we're one of those guys that will answer everyone's DMs, right? We got the Discord going, people talking to us in there all the time. We're very attached to our fan base. That's what's helped us a lot, especially at the beginning. I think before you even get to, if you're a podcast and monetizing, because you could have 20,000 subs and still not sell a damn t-shirt, you know? So I think focusing on community too before you get to monetization is huge, because you can use that as a test. That loyal fan base is a test. You can test a product, you can test a service. But I think the merch has been huge for us in terms of monetizing. I know we want to start getting into live shows as well, like actually doing the show in front of people, maybe 300-400 people. That's an idea we have as well.
And then I think there's two revenue streams that we only found out a little bit later into doing what we're doing after getting signed. There's 2 of them: Facebook and Snapchat. Nobody thinks of these things. Now, we got approached by Snapchat to put our show on the platform. We did that, and we saw like returns that were like ridiculous. Like
they approached you to start uploading your episodes?
So one of the really high up people at Snapchat Canada, because they knew we were Canadian, they reached out to us, showed us so much love, like congrats on everything, whatever. We want to give you guys like a placement for your own show. And they're like, essentially, like, you guys are doing the weekly podcast, just chop it up into real format for like a 2 to 3 minute video and put it on. You're going to be surprised at the returns. And we're like, okay, dude, if this makes us an extra $1,000 a month, like, yeah, whatever, it's $1,000. Like, we have the content anyways. And then we started posting there, and we're like, holy fuck, this is a lot of money you can make from Snapchat. Their CPMs are crazy. $10.35.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stories. These are stories, or it's like they have a real
It's a show. It's a show.
There's like a channel now that you can.
So you can subscribe to channels on Snapchat.
I don't have Snapchat.
Okay.
But,
so there you go. So
I heard people are posting stories.
So that's stories. So like that's the next step. But I think for a podcast, like anybody running a show of some sort, which like if you have a decent following, they'll, like, it's not hard. They'll give you a spot. Yeah. But they print, and then the stories is like, people are printing money. Like if you want to talk about internet money, like Snapchat is internet money, but so is Facebook. You still have to remember, Facebook is the biggest social media platform in the world, still to this day. As much as we don't watch it, you don't use it maybe. I don't know if you do or don't. Like, or maybe you use it for ads and whatever, but not necessarily as like a daily platform. Yeah. It is the biggest in the world still to this day. Yeah. And maybe it's not mainly America. Maybe it's a lot of Europe, Asia, whatever, but they're on it. So they also have a very high CPM as well. So
you're uploading clips as well.
Yeah. So then basically we're not doing the whole pod. We're doing on Facebook. We're uploading maybe 5 to 10 minute clips.
Wow.
Best moments of the pod, whatever. And we're going almost every day on there. So those were 2 revenue streams that we were very surprised about. I got to shout out Adam22 actually. He put us on the Snapchat. No, he put us on Facebook.
Yeah.
We did the podcast with him, and he's like, right after we finished, he's like, we were just talking business, and he's like, you guys are on Snapchat, right? And we're like, yeah, we are. Like, he's like, okay, good. Because I don't know why these other podcasts aren't. Like, that's where you got to be. And we're like, okay, cool. And then he's like, are you guys on Facebook? And we're like, which we are. Like, we post our clips, but it was like, we post our reels or it's our page, like nothing crazy. And he goes, no, but are you monetizing on Facebook? And we're like, no. And he's like, dude, I'm making upwards of 6 figures a month off of just like posting my no jumper shit there. And he's like, it's just recycled content. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, I have this guy. I'm going to connect you. No problem. So shout out Adam for that. He connected us to a guy who really helped us get our Facebook off the ground. And so those are like 2 revenue streams that like every podcast, like he said, there's steps though. Build your community first, then hit these platforms. Like to go right away, it's a waste of time. Yep. You got to do it when the time's right, like when you're at a certain level. But when you are, those are 2 platforms that you absolutely cannot forget about.
And it's easy to forget about because like even for us, we're thinking Spotify, Apple, YouTube for the long form, and then repost clips on Shorts, TikTok, IG Reels.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk off mic. We'll give you some sauce.
Even when it comes to even for anyone that has like a new podcast and they're trying to get out there, trying to get some sponsors, like what we started doing, and we talked about this off camera, was just we started acting like we had sponsors. We would just put a fucking
hey, thank you so much, Liquid Death. Man.
Maybe we wouldn't even say it. Yeah. Maybe we wouldn't say it. We would just have it there, right? Or maybe we're wearing a certain shirt, clothing or hat or whatever, and then we kind of use that as a base where now brands are watching and they think you're sponsored.
Yeah.
So like, okay, they have current sponsorship. This is what it would look like. So actually trying to put yourself in a position to attract these brands, right? No brand's gonna just come out of nowhere, especially if you haven't looked like you worked with brands before and start working with you. So I think having something like that, if you like a brand, now don't go too big with the brand. Like go for something local maybe, and then start that way. But that's a way to start getting brand sponsorships.
Yeah, 100%. So you guys are actually, one thing I want to talk about is you guys are traveling a lot now, right? So I think everyone sees the glory, the glamour on, when you see the podcast, but your guys' schedule is pretty hectic. So give me the whole lowdown on traveling, what that looks like, where you even film with people, your schedule. So
yeah, it gets hectic. The thing is, it's never the same situation. Like we were saying off cam, for example, when we do travel, we like to do it strategically because we travel with 5 guys. We like to say, okay, cool. Like we're gonna, we've sort of gathered a group of guests that we have in New York, let's say. So, we're gonna head to New York for 5 days. We're gonna do a podcast every single day, in and out, because like we mentioned, that's 5 round trip flights there and back. Let's say from Toronto to New York, or wherever, Miami to New York. And then it's an Airbnb that has to fit 5 guys. And now we're fucking nice guys. We don't like make our guys sleep in the same bed together. Everyone gets their own fucking room. Like they're fucking treated like royalty, these guys. If you're watching this, you know that. You know what I mean? We don't. And then it's everything. It's like when we travel, we pay for every meal. We pay everything. Like our guys travel with us. They're not only getting paid to be there, but we're covering every single cost. Wow. So it's expensive. It gets very
expensive.
Yeah. Very expensive, right? So we're strategic. We try to do it like that when it comes to like the trips. But then, like I mentioned off the pod, like if it's, let's say today's Sunday, like if we were to get a call right now and it was like, yo, Drake's good for tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're leaving this room. We're getting on a flight and going to Toronto. Even if we had pods, like. So that's where we are. So we've had moments where it was like, hey, this guy's ready to, in 2 days in Arizona, Phoenix. And then we're like, okay, drop everything, and let's go. So we've done that a bunch of times. So it can get hectic, right? Like money-wise, it gets hectic. Just travel-wise, it gets hectic. And you can't really commit to anything. It's like, obviously we're both fucking Italian. We're very like family-oriented. So like, dude, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's my mom's birthday tomorrow, but Drake calls for the pod, I'm going to go to the pod. And I love you, mom, but it just is what it is, right? Like we're in that growth stage so that one day I can commit to that, right? So you cannot have any commitments. There's no time commitment. You commit to chill to see your buddies you haven't seen in 5 months next Tuesday, but good luck. If there's a massive guest, you're gone.
Yeah.
So there's no commitment to anything, anybody at that point. The money is very expensive to travel, as you know. And yeah, like at the beginning, you think it's going to be fun to like, fly around here, fly around there. Flying fucking sucks. Like, unless you're flying fucking private jets, which we are nowhere near doing that. Like, you're flying commercial flights get delayed. You're stuck in the airport for 9 hours. It was only supposed to be 2 hours. You land late, early pod in the morning. You're eating like shit. You can't keep up with a workout regimen. You can't keep up with a diet regimen. So it's like, you're just all over the place. One day you're in Pacific time, next it's Eastern, then you're in fucking Mountain time, and nothing's the same. And communication with people that you care about is not the same. Like, it's and I'm not trying to complain about it by any means, but it's not easy. That's the point I want to make.
That's why we drink all that espresso.
Yeah.
Now you get it.
It looks glamorous. But it's not always glamorous. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. So it can get hectic. I don't know if you want to add on to that. Or
No, I just think, you nailed everything. I just think people, when they see you on camera, they don't know what it took you to get there, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't know if you just drove in 6 hours of traffic in a rainstorm to get to that podcast, right? And you're just dialed in because you're dialed, right? But it's a lot more work than people think, and you would know that as well, right? It's a podcast. It's tough, man, and you have to also be mentally there in the conversation.
Yes.
Right. So you could do all the flying, the traveling, check into the Airbnb, go grab a bite with all your boys, but you still have to be locked in for that conversation. That's the hardest part, I would say.
Well, that's the worst part.
In between doing all that.
Well, it's like you said. Let's say you take a 6 hour flight, you land, then you gotta
sleep for 5 hours.
You sleep for 5 hours, then you gotta drive 4 hours north in the rain to get to a guest. And along that 4 hour drive, right before you're about to pull into their studio or their house, or wherever you're filming, you get a text from someone you love, a family member, that something shitty just happened.
Or a client or this.
Or a client or whatever. And then you got to like pretend that you didn't see that and go smile on camera and make sure you kill an episode. So it's like he mentioned, like being mentally there is also something that sounds so easy to do, but not when you have a real life. Like,
and you can even speak on that too, right? Like being mentally dialed in for an episode. Like, it takes more than just showing up.
People think you just sit there and just talk, but you have to listen.
You're doing research on your guests, right?
Research,
You're doing research.
listen.
You're preparing yourself. You're making sure that, you know what, I need to be on the ball today. I need to sleep well the night before. I need to go for a run this morning so I feel extra energy over here, right? Like all these things, and I don't think people see that part, right?
Yeah. Gotcha.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So where do you guys film when you travel?
So what we pretty much we'll pull up anywhere, right? Like we did a lot of the LA ones at the Full Send headquarters in Orange County, which was dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go to someone's house, we'll go to someone's condo. If it comes to a point where we don't have a space and they don't have a space, we'll probably just rent a studio, which has happened a lot too.
Tons of times.
We have a lot of connections in the cities that we do it in, so we also do it at venues and stuff like that. We've done it on a yacht here in Miami. Shout out Dave Grutman. We can get some of his venues to do the episodes at too. So it's all about getting creative and not limiting yourself, right? If you just say, if it's not in a studio, we can't do this.
And you have to learn, right? We used to have the arms. We used to travel with just the arms, but then we kept realizing, like, we'd go to places like, we'll pop up anywhere and shoot a pod. Fuck, they don't have a table that the arms fit on properly. Yeah. So you have to adapt. Then we were thinking of doing.
Then we were holding mics
in some of our episodes.
We would unhook it and just hold it. Like
and
just
then,
the mic itself.
And then we realized, okay, that doesn't fucking work. So then we ended up getting like the stands that come off the ground. So we're always trying to adapt and pretty much make it so that we could literally pull up anywhere and film a pod. But like you said, dude, Dave Grutman, again, shout out Dave. He let us into his house. We filmed in his condo, beautiful condo. Pooh Bear, same thing. Pulled up to his house.
Adam 22 at his studio.
Adam 22 at No Drunk.
Oh, so you can film at people's studios and stuff too.
We'll film anywhere, dude. Anywhere. We'll literally like pull up in your living room and just film. Like we don't care. Yeah. As long as like the episode's giving value, the backdrop doesn't always matter. Of course, you want it to look nice. Like it's always better when it's aesthetically pleasing and whatnot. But we will literally fucking pull up anywhere and shoot. Yeah. Yeah, we have no.
So you guys have a fat suitcase with all the cameras.
Dude, of course.
Yeah, we got a Pelican case.
Traveling with that thing.
A Pelican, and then
things like fucking 100 pounds.
That thing costs more than a fucking person flight.
Yeah,
like, I'm paying like $500 for a flight, $600 for a flight, one way. That thing's costing $6 just to put on the plane. Yeah. Like $600. So we travel with that. Yeah, we pretty much built like we built the set that we can just carry with us anywhere.
And you have to remember, like, we're going for huge guests, right? So we got to bring it all.
Yes.
We got to make sure that like anything that's needed, we have it, right? They're just coming in, sitting down and talking, nothing else, right? We try to make it so that it's very easy on the guest as well. We try to put ourselves in their shoes, right? So yeah, we don't ask for much when it comes to guests. Oh, you have a spot? All right, we'll pull up, we'll do everything. You just come sit down and talk. And then getting creative, doing it at different venues. Yeah.
We actually did our craziest one was Versace Mansion. We did
that was dope.
We did with Purple Miami.
Yeah.
We did him at like Versace Mansion.
First podcast ever at Versace Mansion.
Wow.
During a live, when we were scheduling it with him, we thought it was gonna be like a empty venue because it was like pretty early in the day, like 11 to 12. And we pull up, man, and it's full. They're doing a lunch service.
Yeah, it was maybe 80
And
to
me
100
and him
people.
are just looking at each other like, dude, we're not expecting this. But then it's like that moment where it's like, okay, am I gonna be a fucking pussy? Am I gonna like, am I scared to do it in front of these people live or not? And so we literally set up a fucking table in the middle of Versace Mansion.
People
are eating,
right beside
staring at us like,
Yeah.
who the hell are these guys? And we're running a full pod cam setup.
That's amazing.
Lights, whatever. So
our guests are
anywhere.
cool too. Like they try to help us as well,
Yeah.
right? They're like, okay, let's do it. I'll help you get this spot. Like, let's do it up there. So all our guests have been cool like that too. If they want to make it happen, they help us as well, right? We just try to do it all ourselves usually.
yeah.
Got it. And is it like a 3-camera setup you guys travel with, or?
Yeah, we do 3.
3 cam
right.
setup.
Camera setup.
We'll always bring 4 mics.
Yeah.
Just to have them.
Yep.
One can break, one can stop working, so we gotta have some extras.
And usually what we'll do is like if it's 3 people, we'll do like let's say us 2 and 1 guest, and then we'll actually get our producer, give him a mic, because sometimes he'll just like pop in with a question
like a Joe
we didn't
Rogan
think
type
about.
thing, right?
Like
Yeah,
Joe Rogan
yeah,
has
yeah.
Jamie. He'll be like, "Yo, Jamie, pull that up." So even if we're like talking about something, let's say like a specific statistic or something, and then we're like kind of off, like let's say we said it was like 70%, it was actually 50. He's in the back end on his computer. He's like, "Hey boys, no, it was actually 50% of people do this,"
Oh,
and we're like, "Okay, cool." So it, like helps the pod as
Yeah,
well.
that's smart.
Yeah,
That's smart.
so full setup. Like we're really ready for anything.
And I think it's also cool seeing your guys transition, right? From just you 2 now to team of 5. I'm sure it's going to keep growing as
Yeah.
well. And
we were actually talking on the way here about getting our 6th.
Yeah.
really,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, it's growing. It's fun, but that's kind of the beauty of it. Just never getting comfortable. You want to grow the subscribers, you want to do all that, but at the end of the day, if you could have 500,000 subscribers and not make $1. So it's like, it's also a business at the end of the day. So we try to just keep ourselves grounded in the sense that like, yeah, we need to continue growing our audience, but we also need to make money along the way. And how are we going to do that? Right. So just getting creative with that. That's kind of the focus.
I think it's good that you guys have the agency and started that first.
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause
Yes,
now,
I agree.
Now you have that coming in. You can work on that, but boom, push.
And they help
clients as
each
well.
other too, right?
Exactly.
They help each other. Very
So-
complimentary. And another thing too, which happened in the agency when we started the podcast, maybe 6 months later, was that a lot of clients started coming to us to produce their podcast.
Yeah.
So now I think Neighborhood's managing and producing maybe 10 to 15 podcasts as well
Wow.
in Toronto. Yeah.
and here in Miami.
And here, here as well. Yeah.
So you guys are more like content based versus running ads, like content.
100%.
and
Yeah,
brand.
no,
Content and
we
brand.
don't do. I mean, very minimal. But
We stick to what we're good at, you know.
Exactly,
That's the
exactly.
thing, and I think when it comes to social content, I think that's our bread and butter, and I think people know that as well now. But again, we won't say no to someone who wants digital ads.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do find ourselves doing a lot more content, let's say, than anything else.
And again, it's what you guys are good at. It's what
Yeah.
you enjoy doing.
Stick to
You're
what you're
already
good at.
doing it as
Yeah,
well.
correct.
If someone's like, all right, show me your portfolio
I know,
of your
right?
podcast that you've
Exactly.
helped. You're like, all right, look at ours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that recipe, and because we're still learning about our podcast, we're implementing these changes for our clients too.
Yeah.
And they appreciate that. They're like, oh, let's say we found a way to make thumbnails better. Now all our clients are getting that sauce too.
Yeah, that's
is
so
cool,
good.
which is
That's
cool.
so good.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Well, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast. I
Yeah,
think we
no.
covered a lot. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
no, we
just
went in.
seeing your guys come up and I think even 1-2 years from now when we look back and look at this podcast and you guys have Drake on it,
Yes.
it's going to be a good memory.
Yeah, we'll clip
So,
that back.
Well,
for
same with
sure.
yours, man. Same with
Yes.
yours. You're gonna grow too, man, and
Yes,
we're gonna
sir.
come and do a round 2, aren't we?
Of course.
For
Of
sure.
course.
For sure.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
No, man,
course.
it's a pleasure.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.